and we're beginning to accumulate and get together. I see many of the pictures on the screen. I'm just so delighted that you're all with us. This will be being recorded, so you may get a chance to see something that you miss later. In the meantime, though, I just want to give a very warm welcome to the many members represented here tonight. We have over 1,000 members. We won't have 1,000 members with us, but it's wonderful. I want to welcome our board of directors. I want to particularly note that several of our past presidents are here. They'll be mentioned further during the program, and I'm just delighted to see them all on the screen. And also many, many volunteers. We have hundreds of volunteers each year. This year has been an extraordinary year, of course, because of the COVID pandemic. But I have to say, maybe it's because of the pandemic, we've had more people participating in our programs, every one of them throughout the year for the past 15 months. I think that's an indication how much we enjoy and want to be together in times of crisis. And this is a group that's so globally attentive that I think it also gives an added energy to us as the volunteers for this organization to want to be engaged together, both for our local community and for the global community. We're still Zooming this evening. I'm sorry that we're having to Zoom still this evening, but we're inching up toward going back to reality and meeting together. And I think in the next couple of months, as people are beginning to get out and about and attend lots of different meetings, we'll see each other. And we'll begin to program our activities, including programs during the summer and certainly into the fall. So I'm just very pleased about that. That's very great progress. At the same time, I think this institution is reflective constantly and mindful, though, of the challenges around the world. So many people are not in great shape. Their countries are suffering from this terrible, terrible disease, and it continues. And it will continue with us through 21, 22, and I'm afraid into 23. But the signs of increased vaccination and opportunity for people to begin to receive the extraordinary progress that's been made on vaccinations and vaccine availability is a good sign, and I'm very hopeful. I also want to note that our audience includes members from UNA USA, with whom we spent last week at the Week of Action, helping to make sure that our Congress was very well aware of the priorities for the US UN budget. It was a wonderful week, and I thank my colleagues from UNA USA. Paula Boland, who's going to be speaking shortly, of course, I think you all know, is also the National Council Chair for UNA USA. So she wears two hats. She probably wears many hats, but those are the two, as president of UNA NCA and is the chair of the board, which council, which Karen Mulhauser used to be chair of prior to that. Tonight, Paula and her team, her extraordinary team in UNA NCA, made up of volunteers, made up of too few paid staff, but wonderfully paid, wonderful staff, who some of whom are paid, and we're just delighted, have put together a wonderful program for this evening that I think is very timely, coming on the heels of the successful week of summits in Europe, where many of our interests, many of the interests and the activities that we applaud and support and advocate for, were front and center on those tables in those meetings, multilateralism being at the head part of the agenda. President Biden and his team have been outstanding in reflecting the strong partnership and renewing that partnership with the United Nations, by the United States, and speaking to that issue constantly here and everywhere. That's what we're about this evening. We're so pleased to be joining together at this time in our annual meeting, when there are so many signs of positive interaction and traction between the United States and the UN, and particularly the mission that we share together in helping to reinforce a strong collaborative relationship, as has always been the case until the last 4 years, between the United States and other key democratic countries, but all countries, frankly. And we wish this year continues to grow with that same spirit of collaboration, cooperation. I think it will. I think we know that the United States has returned to support of all the principal key agencies that were undermined during the Trump administration. I'm not being political here, it's a point of fact. What a sad period in our history to see that undermining of the critical roles of so many UN agencies, including the UNFPA, which is going to be represented tonight, and the Human Rights Council, and WHO, and UNESCO, and so forth. I won't go on and on. It's important to recognize that this year has been active with a growing set of young people, youthful advocates. Our membership now includes 64%, I saw in one of the slides going to be presented tonight, people under the age of 40. That's good news for a nonprofit organization with this mission. It means that what we're talking about is our future, and the future of these issues being front and center for our membership and our activities. And with youthful members, we'll have greater influence throughout the years ahead. So I'm pleased to be celebrating this year, but frankly, I'm very pleased about the future this holds for our organization and going forward. Tonight, we're going to have also another special event. As you know, at the beginning of this year, Paula Boland became the president, not just executive director. I was then the president, really chair of the board, and we decided that we ought to call each other by the titles that best reflect what we actually do. So Paula has had a wonderful year as the president of UNA NCA, and I've had a wonderful year as the chair of the board. But tonight actually is not a celebration about me. It's about the beginning of a new leader, Jill Christensen, who will by the end of this evening accede to become the chair of the board. And she was elected last year as chair-elect. That's the first chair-elect we've ever had. So tonight's the first transition of the first chair-elect become chair of the board. So we'll end this evening making that transition formally, and I'm welcoming that very much. Looking forward to Jill's leadership in the years ahead. Without further ado, I want to now introduce Paula, who will in turn introduce Natalia Kanan, who is the UNFPA Executive Director, the UN Population Program. And she's going to be in a conversation moderated by Paula. And I can't think of a more timely and appropriate subject matter than families' needs around the world, and the need to concentrate on that as one of the highest priorities for the operations of the United Nations, and as our country to support that. And this past January, it was announced by President Biden that we're returning to full support of the UNFPA. Without further ado, Paula, take it away.
Thank you very much, Steve, for your warm welcome. And I would say more importantly, for all these many years of visionary leadership and ongoing support to me, to my team, to everyone else who is part of the UNA NCA family. We are very grateful for your years of service and look forward to continuing working together to take that partnership of the UN and US to the next level. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining our annual membership meeting. It is my distinct honor to introduce you to Dr. Natalia Kanem, the Executive Director of UNFPA, the UN Population Fund, the Sexual and Reproductive Health Agency, which mission is to deliver a world where every pregnancy is wanted, every childbirth is safe, and every young person's potential is fulfilled. Since UNFPA started its work, the world has seen much progress. The number and rate of women dying from complications of pregnancy or childbirth has been halved. Families are healthier, and young people are more connected and empowered than ever before. However, too many are still left behind. More than 760 million people are living in extreme poverty. Sexual and reproductive health problems are a leading cause of death and disability for women in the developing world. Young people bear the highest risk of HIV/AIDS infection and unintended pregnancy. Many millions of girls face the prospect of child marriage and other harmful practices such as female genital mutilation. So really more needs to be done to ensure a world in which individuals can exercise basic human rights. We know the COVID-19 pandemic has only but exacerbated these challenges and affecting women and girls disproportionately. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Khanum. Can you share with us UNFPA's efforts in response to the challenges posed by the pandemic?
Well, first of all, let me just thank you very, very warmly indeed, and greet all the members. It's exciting for me to be with you, Paula, and also Steve. I think the work that you're doing individually, but also in a united way, is part of that solidarity that I talk about as I go around the over 150 locations where UNFPA works every day. We're about 5,000 strong and even stronger in partnership. So this is really what this evening represents for us and why I'm personally so excited to share a little bit of what we've been doing in response to COVID, Paula, as you've asked. I am proud that UNFPA was one of the first to sound the alarm when we understood that a pandemic, this shattering occurrence that none of us could have predicted that we would go through, was going to involve movement restrictions. So when we see that women are unable to go about the course of daily business, where girls are home from school and perhaps vulnerable, this is when we predicted, and sadly the predictions did come true, that the possibility of gender-based violence, the possibility of girls losing their agency over their own body, bodily autonomy, child marriage, female genital mutilation could be a problem. And as you know, UNFPA, as the UN Sexual and Reproductive Health Agency, is also called to help women manage fertility in the way that they see fit. This is part of rights and choices. So with a whole health system disrupted, our other priority is to make sure that childbirth is safe, as you've noted. Well, if there's no there when the woman walks to the health center, the midwife is wearing a raincoat for her PPE. Remember the whole scramble logistically for protective equipment. All of these issues basically can be summarized by saying women and girls issues were not deemed essential, nor were they prioritized. So what we did was to reach out, as we always do, in partnership, and in particular with local women-led organizations who know the village. They know the island requirements. They understand, because we've been working in many of these countries. We're 52 years old, and for the past decades, we had previous relationships. So they knew, okay, it's going to be hard to reach this community, or disabled people are living in a particular part of the town, or whatever it was. We were able to plan together in concert, not just with the United Nations, but which of course we're very proud of the work that Dr. Tedros and WHO for our humanitarian work under the umbrella of the Refugee Agency. But what we really did was we determined that we shouldn't let COVID be a setback. Shelters for people who face violence went up overnight. The existing ones that we had, those hotlines, became lifelines. And working with governments, we figured out a lot of those early logistics when everyone was scrambling to figure out, remember border closures and the movement of equipment and all of this. Ultimately, we also entrusted young people, because we have a huge network, and following on the Nairobi summit, they were already activated, who I just found inspiring. They knocked on doors to make sure that older people were okay, volunteered to translate vital information, because information and misinformation had been an issue. The point at the end where we've analyzed so far, looking back to 2020, it was bad, but it could have been a lot worse. And I think the ability to work together was really what made a big difference. Could say more, Paula. You see, I'm very enthused about this because rights and choices are part of the whole pandemic response.
Absolutely.
Putting women at the center is part of the 2030 agenda. But that's just a snapshot of how we tried to respond in real time. Thanks.
I mean, if anything, I would say that the challenges of the pandemic open further eyes in terms of the critical work that UNFPA is doing to elevate the rights for women and girls and to take care of them. So thank you very much for stepping up.
Thank you.
I think this audience knows very well that the big news is that the Biden-Harris administration has resumed funding the UN Population Fund after a 4-year lapse by the US. What does US financial re-engagement with UNFPA mean to the organization?
Well, again, Paula, you know, this is so important right now. And USA is back in a sense, but I also have to say to this particular group that in many ways, USA never left. I think it was a difficult period to see challenges to even some of the phrases like sexual and reproductive health. The US has always led when it comes to women's rights. And that continued, albeit, you know, with due respect to governments working for the United Nations, we do come under that umbrella. We had to fashion new ways of working. And our team in Washington, led by Sarah Craven, and Rachel is also with us this evening, I think worked very well to preserve those avenues of dialogue. But I'm telling you, as much as we appreciate and really want to advocate for strong financial support, very grateful to the Biden-Harris administration as they came out of the gate for reaffirming this idea that women's rights are human rights, which again, you know, famously during Beijing 26 years ago, the Secretary of State then, Hillary Clinton, led this feminist movement for saying that women's rights should be at the center. So the financial assistance, especially in the humanitarian realm, has been most welcome. You know, the world desperately needs that. But I have to add that the political backing and the strategic backing of USA is part of the solution to some of the most intractable problems that we can see a common strategy through the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. And this is why we've been very enthused to hear the current Secretary of State, the new USAID administrator, and so many others, including Linda Thomas Greenfield, who I've had the privilege of meeting with already. Very different than the past era, I might add, who have spoken, I think, very deliberately to the type of priorities that they will address, and the goals that we have to see the end of female genital mutilation. We can do this. It takes working in concert with the countries where this is prevalent in Africa and in Asia. Even in my home country of Panama, I was shocked to find out that in certain communities, FGM is being practiced on a traditional basis. But with the USA back, the taboo issue of not wanting to speak to sexual diversities can change. The issues that have to do with young people and not letting them fall into ignorance around their sexuality can have lifelong consequences. We can construct this dialogue. So I'm really happy that this association and you know, with the backing of a very powerful government on the world stage in the United Nations member states, the tremendous influence that USA wields is on the side of the most vulnerable girl we can imagine, who really, really needs our solidarity so that she can fashion her future according to her wishes.
Well said. It is indeed a new era of recommitment on the part of the US and as a leader in the global stage coming back. But I think it's also worth noting, as you said, that many different actors have been working towards supporting the rights of women and girls, the principles of your agency and UNA, USA, with all its chapters across the country, over 200, have been steady advocates knocking on doors of congressional representatives every turn during the budget process, trying to educate our members of Congress about the important role of the agency, try to eliminate the disinformation out there, and ultimately, I think it's a partnership effort. We are where we are because we've been working together towards the same goal. I'd like to ask you, what does the relationship with the US mean to UNFPA beyond funding?
Well, that's a great question. And I believe that the whole idea of looking at population, the population fund still works on census. We still try to assist our developing country governments with constructing census questions, with figuring out the new modern census, which is electronic, and with trying to make sure that even if the person is nomadic or likely to be left behind for some reason in a rural area, we find you and we count you. Everyone counts. Well, as you know, the prowess and the strong relationship with the USA is also buttressed because evidence and data through the census is one of the strengths of that bureau of the US government. So it's beyond a monetary relationship, a partnership to strengthen the developing world and to follow the rubric now of country-led activities. You have to know who's being left behind. I also would say that apropos of what I was saying earlier about the political clout and influence of USA, when it comes to family planning, this is an investment worth making. USA has understood this. And so much as we know the trajectory of development in practically every case, it's the economy buttressed by women's participation, which made the so-called Asian tigers overcome poverty. When we think about who it is that we're going to need to bring to the table to build back better after COVID, we see women are the ones who've been dropping out of the workforce. The burden of care at home still falls on the shoulders of women and girls. And every time I travel, it's so sad for me to see the girl who has to take the pottery jar or the plastic jug or whatever it is to the river in the morning before she can even think about her schoolwork. She's fetching water. So in all these aspects, being able to plan your fertility, contraception, and family planning is very empowering for women in an era of climate change, in an era where we're saying full women's political participation. Well, women in developing countries do want to avail themselves of these possibilities that, an injectable contraception or, the long-acting ones give. So in practically every instance where the USAID group is working in the less developed world, UNFPA is a partner in terms of planning for contraception, acquiring commodities, making sure that the woman's choice is respected. And this has been really, really important. We're part of an alliance together, USA, UNFPA, and many others, including philanthropies, FP 2030, as many of your members are well aware, and FP 2030, it was FP 2020 before, has been a huge boon to countries of Africa, Asia, and Latin America who sit around the table and who prioritize together. So the leadership means a lot. I will also say that, the American people are admired around the world because of generosity and also because of ingenuity and innovation. So the thought partnership, as we say, is really, really important. I mean, sticking to a plan, figuring out how to privilege women and put their thoughts and needs at the center. For me, more and more, also that goes for young people who are ready and capable of leading. All of this takes many hands. And the symbolism of what President Biden and the new administration is doing to be more inclusive really carries a lot of power. So I'm very excited that this, beyond the money, and the money is important for humanitarian in particular. I should stress, Paula, that in places like Yemen and Syria, I just came back from Congo and Sudan, having the issues of justice spotlighted. In Ethiopia, the Tigray situation is very much on my mind. The leadership of the United States is really, really welcome as a defender of the rights of some of the most vulnerable people on the planet. So that's so important.
Absolutely. So as a grassroots organization across the country with more than 20,000 members, as I mentioned earlier, what can UNA members do to help UNFPA?
Well, as we were preparing to meet with you today and looking at your website, which is so interesting, one of the things that really struck me was your tagline of "the world needs the UN and the UN needs you." We, the peoples of the United Nations, the idea of peace is something that every individual has to carry. Yes, legislation can help. Yes, we can have role models. But at the end of the day, I think it's every individual that makes a difference. And look, whether you're persuading someone in your family, whether you're standing up in front of the school board, or whether you're mentoring someone else, who is otherwise completely unrelated to you, the idea of solidarity among people is part of the hope that I bring as a United Nations official. The UN doesn't have a lot of money, but we do have the passion and the fervor about peace and dialogue and the power that that brings. The United Nations Foundation, very close partner of UNFPA, also surveys the attitudes, and we see that even during the rocky road times, people still look to the United Nations as a symbol of peace and of working on humanitarian issues and being honest about transparency. So that trust factor, I think, is one where members can engage in terms of talking about peace as a reality. Look, a lot of the humanitarian horrors that I see are based on conflict that you would think, if people had come to the table and discussed, could be resolved. I think after the moment of George Floyd and that tragic death, which we witnessed, the association members can lead when it comes to breaking the ice around issues of racism, around issues of immigration, and also insisting that women and girls not bear the brunt of crisis. For me, I think it's also very important to realize that people who are motivated to join with us in this type of an association typically have a circle of power, in their community, at their job. They're listeners, and typically people listen to them. So a lot of us are going through an era now where we do have to speak up and speak out and not be shy about hosting these types of dialogues. And I also would like to say that holding the course, holding the, how do you say, during the times of the past administration, it's actually an encouragement that people understood the rights-based argument is a question of justice. It's a question of equality. And I think for us, groups like Friends of UNFPA, which is an NGO that fosters understanding on the American side of why we're doing what we're doing, why we talk about sex and the intimacy of the family and the risk that it can hold for especially young people who are ignorant, makes a difference. So we're grateful to the Friends of UNFPA and all of the associations who, again, are willing to engage in dialogue. You know, our own Secretary General put out a call for ceasefire last year because of COVID. And he also put out a call for peace in the home. When we know that gender-based violence is so prevalent and that women are victimized and blamed, it takes people who the members of the association represent to speak about this, you know, in the faith communities, to speak about the travesty of shaming and blaming the victims of gender-based violence and bringing that out of the closet, if you will. So on so many counts, I think the support of and the willingness to act of your members is a beacon of light at a time when that's what the world really needs.
And rest assured, Dr. Kanem, that we will continue to speak up and speak out. And we do that because we are inspired by the work of agencies like UNFPA. And when we see the work on the ground, we want to carry out and share that and share our stories with our members of Congress, with other Americans. And it's all through education and advocacy that we're trying to strengthen that. So thank you. So UNFPA, as you said earlier, was created back in 1969. That was a pretty different time.
Yes,
what makes UNFPA relevant today?
Well, that's such a great question because, you know, as we reviewed our trajectory for the Nairobi summit, which took place a couple of years ago, celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Cairo International Conference on Population and Development, it was also our 50th anniversary. So in reviewing our history, I think it's really interesting that at the time when UNFPA came into being in the 60s, population control type of discourse had been the prevalent discourse. And it was the vision of our founder, Rafael Salas, that said, you know, population is about people. It's not about the numbers. And very soon, consensus developed around the right of women and couples to determine the number of children, if any, that they wish to have. So a lot of far-reaching concepts were already coming to the fore. And I would say that we are still quite relevant because midway through this course in Cairo, we also had something new. And again, for the members, I think in a way, it kind of represents your legacy too. Nafis Sadiq, one of my predecessors, who presided over the Cairo International Conference on Population and Development, was the first high-level woman leader of the United Nations. She was Undersecretary General, and she also invited civil society, the NGOs, to fully attend the Cairo conference. And boy, that dynamic has shaped us till today. So right now, I think those forces of our creation back in 1969 have led to a lot of what I've already said. We believe in women's local leadership. We see that that's what makes a difference. You know, on any given day, UNFPA staff around the world are dealing with making modern contraceptives available to rural women in India, Indonesia, parts of Africa, Latin America, the Pacific, you name it, we're there. And letting them determine. Conversely, what's also interesting, some of the countries that we work with are now facing the prospect of low fertility. And that can sometimes be because of infertility in terms of the biology of the couple, but sometimes it's because women are choosing to have fewer children, because how are they going to fulfill their careers, their duties to parents and others, if they feel they have more children than they can afford? So ultimately, I think it does come down to an issue of choice and delivering safely. I mentioned the midwives in some of what I said earlier that we support. Learning from these midwives is, really exciting. These are community women who choose to go back, are highly trained, and are helping to quell the deaths in childbirth that happen 800 times, every day around the world. And this is something that we can change. I also think we're relevant because, and we're called more and more because we're willing to work on the tragedy that is sexual and gender-based violence in humanitarian situations and help women to heal. So we work on prevention, of course, but when we have these terrible conflicts where sexualized violence is actually being used as a weapon of war, Unfpa, the special representative of the Secretary General, UN Women, all of us have been speaking out against making sure that this doesn't happen. And the relevance is full respect and dignity for women everywhere won't happen on its own if the demand is not raised and if we don't have checks and balances in place to make sure that, well, hopefully women are not made victims, but that there is recourse in the justice system for these women and girls, and sometimes men are affected as well. And also that there is a psychosocial mental healing for them not to be shamed and blamed, but to be welcomed. This has been very important in Nigeria, where we've worked with the Chibok girls who've been released. Thanks, Paula. I may be saying too much in a way because—
No, you're hitting on all the important work of the agency and how it has evolved. And is continuing its relevance today. So we appreciate that quite a bit here. The cultural differences, what you were mentioning at the end, is very important as well in this process of healing and bringing about sustaining peace. I heard that you had a recent trip to to see the humanitarian situation in Yemen. And the work that UNFPA is doing to provide reproductive health and family planning to women and girls in the country. Would you like to share some of the highlights?
Well, thanks, Paula. The minute I got vaccinated, and thank goodness, we were able to avail ourselves of that, I did decide to take a humanitarian mission. And what I saw in Yemen just really convinced me even more of how vital it is that we all work together to make sure that conflict recedes. They're in their 7th year of a conflict, and the roots of it are myriad, but the solution needs to be found quickly. I mean, the population is exhausted. And what I saw was that the fatigue factor on women means that right now, every 2 hours, a pregnant or a woman who's delivering dies. In this country, it's so sad because with all the security situation and the war and conflict situation, women can't get to health centers. We had to actually, under the previous administration, shut down a significant number of our clinics that we were helping to run because the funding was taken away. And so we're really, really happy that there's a prospect of at least ameliorating the situation on the ground. I think there are about 5 million women of reproductive age in Yemen, and a lot of them are asking for contraception. So again, hopefully those doors will open. But the worst thing for me is, people see you sitting in this chair, they understand you're a high official at the UN. When you walk through the door, people want to tell you what's happened to them. And we owe it to them to listen and to make sure that we take action based on what we hear. So as a doctor myself, to hear the stories that these women and girls and what they went through, we all had to cry together, basically. But for my team and all of our humanitarian workers around the world, I'm there for a week. They're there day in and day out. And so I always give lots of honor and credit to them. They're very imaginative. They're helping people to stay the course until the bigger peace dialogue can come to fruition. So in Yemen and in Ethiopia, the threat of famine accompanies these conflicts. And you know how devastating that can be for the developing brain of the fetus and all of this, not to mention just hunger in the family. So we're also trying to understand and support and work in tandem with the World Food Program and with the Refugee Agency to do our best to make sure that women are prioritized for food distribution. Yeah.
Wonderful. My final question, and we're very appreciative of your time. I understand that UNFPA is working on a multi-year strategic plan that will guide its work over the coming years. Can you share with us any insights or things we should be looking for the coming years?
Well, thanks. And, what we do is to declare, and it's all public and online, our mission for the next 4 years of strategic planning, together with the member states who are our executive board, and where, again, USA plays a prominent role. The board happens to have met last week, and we had comments from, very good comments, actually, from the United States delegation. We, like all of us working under the aegis of our Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, have a plan that's going to take us through 2030. And we've divided it into 4-year chunks. So this is the middle one. And there are 3 overarching transformative goals that we know can work to make life so much better for women and girls around the world. And the first is to assure that a serious effort towards contraception and family planning will happen. So 0 unmet need for family planning is the first part of this goal. And we want to accelerate that. It's working well, but we need more and bigger programming. And we're part of that coalition I mentioned earlier, Family Planning 2030, to accomplish this in partnership. The second one is one which, like I've talked about death during childbirth, so 0 preventable maternal deaths. But the minute that I say maternal deaths, the epidemiology part of my brain kicks in, because for every person that dies, there are 100 who would have died, but they're now compromised in some way. So the tragedy of obstetric fistula, where the womb is damaged during prolonged labor, sometimes can only be rectified through surgical procedures. And USA actually has taken an interest in helping these women because of the stigma around leakage of urine, sometimes feces, and the painfulness of this condition, which can be chronic. So UNFPA supports fistula prevention by trying to get you not to be in labor for 2-3 days because transport can't be found. But when such a calamity happens, we're also there to try to help during the healing. And I'd also like to mention to this audience, because I always have to be so careful, now that I'm in the diplomatic realm, as you heard, I came out of philanthropy originally. For the woman who's dying in childbirth that we're talking about, she's 15 years old. She can be 12 years old. She's not a woman at all. She's a girl. So part of our work against child marriage is to assure that the physical maturity, not to mention the readiness to be a parent, but just the plain fact that if you're too young to be pregnant, you're going to be behind the 8 ball when it comes for your survival chances. So it's a social problem, which again, the bodily autonomy in a girl knowing, this is my body, I get to decide. is protective for her on so many points of all of those 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And the last one I've said quite a bit about, our strategic plan is focusing on something that's very hard, but not too hard to be overcome. And that's gender-based violence, the expectation that women will suffer in silence for the children, for the husband, or sometimes the dynamics can be complex because, you know, trafficking of women is a gender-based violence. And there are other forms of terrorizing women, really, all the way up to femicide that we've got to put a stop to. And I think here, the alliances of religious communities have been really important. People should be speaking about this in their places of worship and giving women the opportunity to say what is happening and to report. The justice system, the police, and like I said earlier, all of us, I think, have a responsibility to welcome the discussion and not blame victims for what is happening to them. All of what UNFPA does is based on good data. Hence, I mentioned census earlier, but we also do quite a bit of surveys and trying to spot check country by country, depending on country priorities. The best part of the strategic plan for me is that it declares what are the results that you're going to see if you're a donor country on our humanitarian work, on our work on innovation. What can you expect us to do about menstruation and period poverty? So it's laid out very nicely. And I have to say, we're held to account and we believe in accountability so that we fashion the plan together with our executive board, the member states on our executive board. And I'm very, very excited about it. Thank you.
A true team effort. And what can I say? Many, many thanks. Muchas gracias. Since you are from Panama, we could have done all of this in Spanish, but I'm not sure everyone else would have followed us. I cannot tell you how much I enjoyed and learned just having this conversation with you. Thank you so much for joining us live. We applaud your leadership. And
Paula, is there
Yes.
any chance that we can all unmute and give her an
I was gonna offer
Oh
that.
my goodness.
Yes.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be with you. And
Let's do a big round of applause so Dr. Cannon can hear us.
Thank you.
Bravo.
And thanks to my
Thank
team.
you so
They're
much.
just fantastic. So thanks and all the best.
We really applaud your leadership and the work that UNFPA is doing around the world. And we very much appreciate the ongoing collaboration we have with Sarah Craven, with Rachel.
Yes,
The entire team in DC have been wonderful. So rest assured, as I said earlier, that we will continue to educate and advocate for the critical work that the UN and all of its agencies are doing to ensure that the US maintains its full support and leadership. So thank you again.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome to stay
best.
for the rest of our program if you so wish. And we hope to stay in touch with you. Thank you.
All the best. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Dr. Karen. That was just wonderful. Great conversation. I'm mindful that Paula has told me that I should keep us to a time clock, and the clock is ticking, and we were planning to make a presentation of the annual report in some detail with a number of slides. I think in light of the time change, that we're going to restrict that presentation. First of all, it's going on our website today, and you can all look at it in detail. It's about 17 pages. It's beautiful, and it goes through the entire year program by program and identifies the extraordinary range of donors and also makes a special focus on some of the data associated with our long-range strategic plan. So rather than taking a full 10 minutes or so now, as originally on the program for that, we might, with Paula's thoughts, restrict that to just a couple of minutes. And
Absolutely.
so that then we're able to go on to the Board of Directors election results.
And the rest of the program, yeah.
The rest of the program.
I fully agree. I think it was worth devoting more time with Dr. Cannon. She was really informative and inspirational. So I'm gonna ask our team to put the slides. We're gonna go over quickly some of the highlights, but we won't take more than just a few minutes. And we look forward to having you read the annual report and share comments with us. So that's the cover of our annual report. And I want to thank everyone on my team who worked hard over the last several weeks, certainly more than a month, in putting this together. Can we move it?
Well, I might just note that this is a complicated slide and we won't go into it in detail, but what it does, when you look at it, you will see that there's been extraordinary outreach by this organization, far larger than ever in our history during this pandemic year, reaching thousands of people with new information, with using all the social media in all their glory in a very effective way. It's also maintained our membership. Some people have worried that it was falling below 1,000. Well, actually, it's gone up to more than 1,000. As I mentioned earlier, it's wonderful that the large number of them are actually young people, mid-career and younger. It's a very positive statistic for an organization like this. The other thing that's broadened is our partnerships. Every program has a whole new set of additional partners, and they're listed in the annual report. Take a look at those. We're continuing to emphasize the need to expand partnerships, to find new mutual partnerships to address the many issues like we were just discussing. And then finally, I would just note that the organization is more stable financially, I think, than it's ever been. I almost hate to say that because it might shake the building and then we'll be sorry we mentioned it. But because of many of you who are on the Zoom tonight and throughout the year, your donations from individuals, from corporations, from other institutions, from UN agencies has grown quite dramatically and has enabled us to sustain a staff that's very devoted to these programs and to get continuity among them. I also want to say that an extraordinary thing about this little nonprofit organization is that it also has an endowment. And that endowment was started some 20 years ago and led by several key families who are significant donor families, the Edison Dick family, the Ed Elmendorf family, the Robert Schott family, whose mother was a former president of UNA, NCA, and executive director. She's 101 and is not participating regularly, daily in our programs. I see Bob Schatz on our program this evening.
That's 102 as of
102. Okay, I'm sorry, I missed a year. And then Ed, and I don't know whether Eddie's here, but I know Ed is here and Don Bliss is here and others who have really spearheaded making sure that this endowment, which is unusual for our organization, continues to be contributed to. It reached over $1 million this year. It also has another fund, which one of our former executive directors donated her complex or her condo to, which added to a fund that pays for now about half of our daily rent in our offices. So this is a very unusual element. I really extend my thanks this year to the committee that works on that and to the donor families who've been so generous to increase this, almost double it over the last 2 years. Really quite extraordinary. There are many other aspects of our stability, which I won't go into this evening, but please take a look at all of this. And Paula will show a couple of more slides and then we'll move on to our next event.
I'm gonna now ask the staff to start showing a sample of the many programs that we were able to have this year. I have to say, it's hard to believe, first of all, that another year has gone by and since our last annual meeting, which happened during the midst of the pandemic. And I continue to be amazed at the resilience demonstrated by all of us, leaders, staff, partners, members, volunteers, and as well as the creativity in adjusting all of our existing programs and developing new initiatives. You're seeing some of them right now from our committees that focus on peace and security, sustainable development, human rights, international law. We have the new coffee chat series bringing timely topics, experts in a very engaging way, which allowed us to reach out to lots of folks, not just within our jurisdiction, but beyond, Global Classrooms, who did an incredible job of adjusting an entire year curriculum to online platforms and sustain the support of key stakeholders, our young professionals. I don't want to leave anyone out, but you can see the images here. Special programs such as UN Day brought high-level speakers. We honor member of Congress. And of course, we end 2020 celebrating human rights on Human Rights Day with wonderful honorees, new partnership collaborations through most of our programs, because that's how we carry out our mission, by collaborating and partner with others, whether they're local or international. So I just want to add, second Steve in thanking all of you for making this possible and for all the support that we received throughout this challenging year. Please be sure to look at the details of the annual report that will be on the website if not already. And we will also be mailing copies now that some of us are starting to go back to the office for you to have. So thank you very much. There's the tribute to our successful endowment campaign and the families that Steve mentioned earlier. We're very, very appreciative.
Thank you very much. And without further ado, we're going to come to a very important aspect of our evening together, and that is to announce the Board of Directors election results, and those staying with us and those who are departing and who will be forever related to us. And our Director of Strategy and Operations, Lauren Terrell, who oversees this, will be joining us now to make those presentations. Lauren?
Yes, good evening, everyone. So this year's nominating committee chair, Kristen Hecht, couldn't be with us in person this evening, and I am honored to have the opportunity to announce this year's new slate of board members on her and the committee's behalf. Before I go further, I would like to take a moment to thank the work of the nominating committee, led by the aforementioned Kristen Hecht, and members Ambassador Steve McGann, Judith Edstrom, Jordan Hibbs, and Bailey Dinman, as well as ex officio members Steve Mosley, Jill Christensen, and Paula Boland. The nominating committee led an intensive and detail-oriented process, one that was focused on assessing the board's diversity, equity, and inclusivity needs, as well as the more traditional skills, business connections, and particular interests of existing board members and prospective candidates. This year's process was significantly strengthened by surveys and interviews that captured more information on candidate demographics and backgrounds, allowing the team to make strategic decisions with a focus on diversity and intersectionality. I would like to take a moment to share the ballot demographics, if I may. UNA NCA's board is now seated with a balanced gender composition. 50% of the board is 18 to 44 years old, 33% is 45 to 64, and 17% is age 65 plus. In terms of race and ethnicity, 11% is Asian, 28% Black or African American, 11% Hispanic or Latinx, 6% Middle Eastern, and 44% white or Caucasian. 72% have demonstrated previous engagement with UNA NCA, having already served as a committee member, committee leader, board member, or donor, and 28% are new to UNA NCA. We also have a variety of sectors represented, including academic and education, corporate, foreign policy, government, international development, international relations, NGOs and nonprofits, and philanthropy. Again, I would like to thank and recognize the nominating committee for their thoughtful approach to board recruitment and for vetting an incredibly diverse and talented set of candidates. Without further ado, I would like to present this year's board slate, and I believe there is a slide. Our board chair, Jill Christensen, Vice Chair of Finance and our Treasurer, Tim Barner, Vice Chair of Development, Ambassador Steve McGann. Vice Chair of Young Professionals, Lanice Williams. Next slide. We have our directors at large, Brian Griffey, Christina Hansen, Lewis Henderson, David Luna, Catherine Marshall, Abby Ogunwale, Dr. Yvonne Rivers. We have our two student representatives. Our graduate student rep is Mekara Kiopanape. Our undergraduate student rep is Thomas Rancheng Liu. Congratulations to all of you. On behalf of the board, welcome to our newest members. I look forward to working alongside all of you, and I look forward to our continued partnership with those members who have been reelected to their positions. Again, congratulations.
Lorna or Steve, we have some outgoing board members that we would like to thank that were at the bottom of that slide. Can we put that slide again? Thank you. We want to thank Laura Blyler, who served as our former vice chair for the young professionals. We want to thank Dr. Jafus Doswell, board member at large, Jordan Hibbs at large, Heather Hill at large, Lois Pace at large, Wim Piringer at large, and Scott Steens, who was our former vice chair for finance and treasurer. Many of them are going to continue their engagement in UNA in new and different ways. But more importantly, we want to thank them for their many years of service and contributions.
I'd also like to note that the directors at large are the new directors at large, and Richard Seifman was reelected, who has been a director at large the last 3 years, has been reelected to a new 3-year term, and he's with us tonight. So thank you very much, Dick, for offering up to be a candidate again. We're very pleased that you're continuing on the board. Thank you. Thank you very much for that presentation, Lauren. And congratulations to all of those. Could you raise your hands if one of you is elected? I see Catherine Marshall, for instance, on my screen at the moment. Raise your hand. Thank you. Other new directors, raise your hands so we have a chance to see you. There you are, Yvonne Rivers. Who else? I can't see you all because my screen isn't big enough to capture all of you. Are there other? There's Christina Hansen again. I'm glad to see there's Richard Seifman. And let's see if we see others.
Thomas Liu.
Tom Liu, okay. Tom, hi, how are you? And my screen doesn't capture everybody, but I'm sorry, not everybody's on the screen tonight.
Yvonne Rivers, I don't know if
I
you
did see
mentioned.
Yvonne a minute ago, okay.
And
Anyway, thank you very much.
Care.
And a round of applause for our new candidates and our new board of directors. It's a very strong board. It's just outstanding. Thank you very much. And thanks to the help of the leadership for the nominations process. Just excellent. Now we're going to have a very unusual opportunity, and that is to have a piano recital presentation by Corinne Yang, who is one of our graduate fellows in our graduate fellows program. She happens to be 13 hours away in Seoul, Korea. She's up early to be with us, and we're very much looking forward to her original composition of Ode to Joe from Beethoven, of course, but Ode to Joy, which she has made a presentation and a special arrangement for us for this evening. So Ms. Yang, thank you very much for being with us. We're looking forward to your presentation now and as well at the end of the program. It's just delightful. And I should say that she's one of the very successful 36 members of this year's class of graduate fellows. So like the rest of us, Zooming, but in her case, from exactly halfway around the world all semester. Thank you so much for being with us this evening.
Thank you so much for your kind introduction. And good evening to everyone. It is my great privilege to join this annual meeting, and I'm very honored to play for all of you this evening. As an alumna of the GFP, I truly admire the ceaseless efforts of the UNA to make this world a better place. And I also would like to take this opportunity to thank my mentor, Ed, and also the GFP leaders and all the leaders of the UNA. With my gratitude and hope for our brighter future, now I'm going to play my own arrangement, as just Stephen explained, Ode to Joy from Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, as the theme echoes the universality of the UN. So this is a special arrangement only for this particular event. As I play this piece, I sincerely hope that peace and healing will come to all of you. And God bless you all always. Thank you.
Bravo.
Bravo.
Bravo indeed. Oh,
It's all
Wow.
on mute. She
was
deserves a
lovely.
big round of applause.
thank you so much.
Exceptional.
Just extraordinary. We look forward to seeing you at the end of the program as well. Thank you very much. This is a highlight of our event tonight, I must say. Thank you indeed.
Beautiful.
We're going to, if everyone wants to just stretch a little bit, go right ahead and stretch a little bit. That's
You
just
can
fine.
stand
You're
up.
all sitting there. I don't know whether we can stand up. We probably don't all have pants on in light of Zoom events. I watched a performance the other night on PBS where the guy was wearing his white tennis shorts when he went to get this a special edition of something he wanted to discuss with the speakers. And I think he was surprised to find he didn't have his pants on. But at any rate, we are at the time we're going to start with the first awards presentation. And the first awards presentation, Paula is going to make to Kristen Hecht.
That's right. That was such an inspiring performance by Karen. I feel so proud, one of our fellows contributing this nicely. It is now my pleasure to, we have already announced, but now formally present the 2021 UNA-NCA Evelyn Falkowski Volunteer Service Award to Kristen Hecht, who serves currently as our Vice Chair of Membership and Volunteer Engagement. And it is my pleasure because I had the honor of receiving this award years ago, and really as a result of my initial years in UNA as a volunteer, and as a result of my relationship with Evelyn, an inspiring one of true volunteer service and that she did for the organization above and beyond, and many members since then had continued that model. And Kristen has really done an outstanding job as a volunteer, had many different roles in the organization, including being a member of my staff, but as a volunteer, she served with the CETA committee, DC for CETA, and most recently with the membership committee, as well as the nominating committee work that Lauren referred earlier. She did a fantastic job strengthening the process, engaging the committee members, and really allowing us to achieve the results that we presented earlier in terms of diversity and inclusion. So we present this award to Kristen, and we'll have now a recording from her.
Hello, and thank you, Paula, for the introduction, and to UNA-NCA for this year's Evelyn Falkowski Volunteer Service Award. Knowing the namesake and history of this award, as well as its previous recipients, I am honored to be with you today as this year's recipient. Serving UNA-NCA has been a joy and a privilege that I am grateful for, and I wouldn't be here accepting this honor had it not been for the many people and opportunities that this organization has provided since I first joined UNA-NCA in 2010. Like many, my volunteer engagement with the National Capital Area Chapter started as a young professional member. I attended a variety of events and programs and eventually started participating in UNA-NCA's committees. My first committee experience was with the DC for CEDAW committee, which works at the local level to increase gender equity. Through this experience, I received mentorship and guidance from Karen Mulhauser, who, as many of you know, brings together different people around the kitchen table to brainstorm, strategize, and to make the good kind of trouble. And as an extension of this work, I was selected as a national representative to attend the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women, which has been one of the top highlights of my membership with UNA that I'd be happy to talk about offline. After participating in DC for CEDAW, I became chair of UNA NCA's membership committee, which works to increase awareness of and membership to our organization. In this role, I have served as a connector within and across the organization. In addition to these committees, I'm thankful for the opportunity to serve on UNA NCA's board of directors. Through this experience, I've been surrounded by 40 other professionals who bring a diversity of thought, skills, and experience, who look at strategic topics through a variety of lenses that make us a stronger organization overall. And most recently, I'm thankful for the opportunity to have chaired UNA NCA's 2021 Nominating Committee, which was tasked with identifying candidates from diverse backgrounds who have skills and motivations to serve the association's board of directors. Through the collective efforts of our committee, we built a slate of candidates for UNA NCA's board, which were voted on by the full membership and just announced a moment ago. Through this experience, I learned the importance of developing intentional processes that were inclusive of nominees from a variety of backgrounds, whether it was the composition of the committee itself, to the outreach and vetting of nominees, to making final decisions on candidates that asked, who is already at the table, who is trying to get a seat at the table but can't, and how might the table need to be reconfigured to be inclusive of diverse voices. Beyond these volunteer roles, some of my fondest memories of serving the organization involve the people. Whether we were sharing a bus ride to New York for the Global Engagement Summit at the United Nations, or planning a local event on global issues, or celebrating together afterwards, it's been the small moments of connection. And I'd say even more so, this connection and community have truly meant the world to me in the last year, as we all experience changes to our personal or professional lives while living in a pandemic. Through all of these experiences, UNA NCA's people, its members, volunteers, staff, you are the heart of this organization. And collectively, their passion, your passion, our passion for international issues is contagious. Thank you again for this award. I look forward to continuing my service with the organization to increase public understanding and support of the United Nations, and to prepare present and future leaders to work for a better world, both globally and locally. Thank you.
Oh, that was wonderful. I'm so glad to see Kristen on video. Thank you so much. And so pleased to see her receiving an award. I've known her my entire time of being involved with UNA NCA when she was a staff member and on up. Just super. Let me now introduce Tom Bradley, who's going to present an award to a group in which he is also a participant. So anything he says about this wonderful team applies to Tom Bradley as well. So Tom, take it away. This is an extraordinary program and a program year so deserving of this award, the Richard and Ann Griffiths Program Leadership Award. Tom?
Thank you, Steve. UNA NCA's Richard and Ann Griffiths Program Leadership Award is given each year in memory of two longtime members and leaders in the United Nations Association, both in Connecticut, where Richard was president of the chapter, and in the national capital area, where Ann Hungerford Griffiths co-chaired our UN Week Committee, worked on our Global Classrooms DC program, and served on the executive committee of the National Association's Council of Organizations. Richard, in the meantime, was chair of our Human Rights Committee for an extended period and vice president for programs. The Griffithses both were lifelong supporters and advocates for human rights and civil rights. The award is presented to the leaders of a committee, program, or activity of UNA NCA who have demonstrated exceptional leadership in organizing and managing programs and events that increase public understanding and support of the UN, encourage constructive U.S. leadership in the UN, and prepare present and future leaders to work for a better world, both locally and globally. The inaugural award was presented in 2015 by the Griffiths' son, Roger, to our Human Rights Committee. Today, UNA-NCA is pleased to present the Richard and Ann Griffiths Program Leadership Award to the Graduate Fellows Program, represented by volunteer co-directors Nancy Donaldson and Edward Elmendorf, and supported by volunteers Soon Hoon An and staff members Andrew Dahl and Henry Webster Mellon and program assistant Danielle Black. The Graduate Fellows Program has been in operation for 30 years, and this spring received high marks in the end of program surveys from the 2021 cohort of fellows for improvements in the substantive focus on global challenges as viewed through a UN lens. As testament to their belief in the program, at least 6 of the fellows are present right this minute in the meeting. Our congratulations go to the entire Graduate Fellows Program led by these 2 marvelous leaders. Please accept this award, Nancy and Ed.
Hi, it's Nancy here. I'm sorry to be in an informal place, but I'm here. Thank you so much, Tom. It's been such a pleasure to work with you these last few sessions. And I really do feel a lot, I want to say to everybody, we really appreciate the honor that you are bringing to us and to our program more than anything. We really set out and we've struggled and we try to define and redefine and then redefine pre-COVID and after COVID. What does it mean to be challenged by a pandemic, which is only one of many crises that has come the way of the world in these last 10 years, especially. We are heading, we hope, into a new phase on COVID, and we are also hopefully post coronavirus overwhelming all of us. But in the meantime, we learned how to teach and do it all online with an incredible group of students. And who are these students? We hope they will be, and we're pretty sure they will be now that we know them rather well, incredible leaders, thinkers, and officials within the UN system and beyond. Also excited and participating members of the UNA-NCA. That's really important to us. And they have stepped up by writing blogs, by bringing forward their remarkable talents like Karen. Thank you, Karen, for that incredible performance. And we have some graduates too, who have already demonstrated what it might look like to have more graduate fellow programs fellows to actually be the intellects who take the lead on UN reform, such as Richard Ponzio, who's also a member of the advisory committee. We have had great experience, and it's wonderful to have them. And lastly, I want to say, because I'm telling you the things that I don't have to repeat because Tom just said them, we want you to know that the dynamism of this course goes well beyond the 4 people. Soon Hoon An, who has brought actual and helped to match mentors with Tom to every one of our fellows. And and then and Tom has been our dean of students and facilitator all the way. Our staff have really helped us to keep the course. And as you can all imagine, because all of you must know Ed by now, he's quite a charming and quite a rigorous intellectual partner, and seriously devoted to the United Nations, to the UNA, NCA, and to the future of good governance in the world. and he just won't mince words. And we have been fortunate to have such board members such as Patty Vedeke as our guest to help us think through climate change, and well-known guests such as John Negroponte and Vivian Derrick, who's also been one of our, twice in a row, been one of our speakers to help us think about the fragility issues in Africa and the world, unfortunately, beyond Africa. So sorry to be maybe long-winded. If I am, I'm done. But thank you. We hope you'll look into and learn more about the GFP, we call it the Graduate Fellows Program. We're going to put out a longer annual report so people can see what we're like and see what we're doing. And maybe, we hope maybe some of you will be involved with it further than you have so far. It's a labor of love, and it's also a privilege to move towards achieving, we hope, helping better informed, more knowledgeable and wiser leaders than in a pipeline to really help a world in great need of leaders from the USA, from the UN, USA, and the UNA's NCA. And but let me be clear, our graduate students are picked for their strong interest in the issues, their strong interest in the UN. And so it's very much from across the world in terms of the leaders that have joined us. And so thank you, graduates who attended today, and thank you for all you're doing to become one of these leaders that we want to be talking about in the future. So that's it. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Nancy. Steve?
Thank you, Nancy, for that wonderful review of the extraordinary year that you and Ed and Tom and Suhoon and Henry and others have worked together nonstop to make an extraordinary special year out of that program. I think it builds for the future, and I hope very much that you're going to continue co-leading this and leading it forward. It's a pleasure to watch you in action. So thank you very much for representing the team in your remarks tonight. It's an extraordinary progression over those last, what did you say, Tom, 25 years, 15 years, 30 years? Thank you. Anyway, thank you very much.
30, yes.
30 years, that's just extraordinary. So we'll look forward to the next year about to begin already. So thank you indeed for your remarks. I'm now anticipating shortly that we're going to put this whole organization in the hands of Jill Christensen, going to turn the last segment of the program before a further final performance by Corinne Yang to Jill to make the final presentation. Thank you very much. Jill?
Thank you very much, Steve. So this now is time for the Arthur W. Johnson Award. He was a longtime supporter of the United Nations Association of the National Capital Area. He began as a meteorologist with the Army Air Corps and served as distinguished service as a diplomat with the World Meteorological Organization, the WMO, which is within the UN system. He worked specifically on initiatives in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Art Johnson, who is named for this award, served both the UNA National Capital Area and the United Nations Association of the United States. With that, he chaired the UNA Adopt a Minefield initiative that cleared landmines in Afghanistan. With his wife, Anne, who in her own right was a very strong supporter of UNA-NCA, of UNFPA, and Planned Parenthood. At his death, Anne decided that it was time to establish the Arthur W. Johnson Leadership Award. Recently, in 2019, Senator Van Hollen of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee received this award. Oh, what a change we've seen in the United States and the United Nations. This year's award is being given, surprise, to Steve Mosley. Steve, your journey with UNA-NCA through the years of leadership with the Advisory Council and now in your role as president and/or, we changed the terms, chair, you've served 2 terms We've known you as a networker, making connections with a broad scope of professionals and organizations across DC, Maryland, and Virginia. We know you as an inspirer, building in support of programs and services for the organization. And as a navigator, always clear on strategy, providing leadership in uncertain times, impacting programs as well as in financial well-being of the organization. UNA-NCA is fortunate that you applied your deep experience in network, taking what you had learned from all of your years at AED through the SID, Society for International Development, and really have deposited them and worked with us within UNA-NCA. It's included defending US engagement in the United Nations, UNESCO especially, and ensuring that the next generation of internationalists, for example, Model UN and the Graduate Fellows Program, are ready. Through this astounding global pandemic time, UNA-NCA, with you and the strength then of our President Paula Bolin, staff and interns, have pivoted to the virtual world very, very smoothly. So Paula and the staff and I have put together a Steve Mosley tribute book. You're going to receive a hard copy, but we're going to show you some images right now and a sampling of what people had to say about you. From Paula. Steve, we've developed a strong partnership collaboration that will continue in the months and years ahead. Tim Barner. You've been a model leader in passion, skills in fundraising and development. Pat Beneke recalls that the energy that you brought to the Sustainable Development Agenda in Baltimore and what the SDGs mean to that city. Don Bliss noted that with your leadership, UNA-NCA has emerged stronger than ever, financially, programmatically, capturing innovative benefits of technology and strengthening advocacy. Don Calabia, part of her message says, Steve, you're an all-around mensch. Dick Siphon, that you've brought the highest levels of commitment, intelligence, management skills, diplomacy, generosity of spirit and purse, more than any organization could want. From our advisory council, we heard from many different people, including Representative Connie Morella. Congratulations on receiving the Arthur W. Johnson Leadership Award. I knew Arthur and am assured that he would applaud the decision as I do. So as for me, in this year when I've served as chair-elect, Steve, I want to thank you for your ongoing commitment to share your sage wisdom and, of course, your modeling of service to the association. So congratulations on the Arthur W. Johnson Leadership Award, your very successful steering of the organization over the past 4 years. And now, Steve, over to you.
Thank you, Jill. What a lovely tribute. What an extraordinary gathering of comments from some of the people I most revere and have known for some time. And so I'm very honored to hear from them. They're the people who should be honored. Indeed, one of the things that strikes me is that a number of people whom I've known through UNA-NCA have received this award before. And I have to say that in my case, I don't feel nearly as qualified or as eminent as some of them. You mentioned some. I've mentioned Princeton Lyman, Ambassador Princeton Lyman, who led so much of the African development needs throughout his career. Connie Morella herself was also a recipient of this, and I have the privilege of living around the corner in my neighborhood from the Connie Morella Public Library. She lives a little further north, but so I think of her almost every day when I go out. Previous presidents, including my predecessor, Don Bliss, are recipients of this. I need to say one more word about Art himself. I didn't know him. In fact, he passed away just the year before I got much more involved in 2011 with the organization. I've heard a lot about him, but I've also read quite a bit about him. And if you look at the history, you'll find that as a citizen diplomat representing NOAA, he went to Moscow in 1961 and negotiated the first significant peaceful exchange of information with the Soviet Union in order to make the world more attentive to the changing, he didn't use the word climate then, but the changing situation of ice and water. He's the quintessential beginner, if you will, of climate change methodology and international global cooperation. And if we think of him and look back in history, what he did during his 50-year career, he really established a benchmark for the potential of great significant nations having to look at the climate in which we operate and to figure out what does that mean. And then it meant having to do with the security of ships and so forth. But that's the basis on which we're now working today for the security of the whole planet. So I'm really honored to be able to sense that association. I have to say, if I've done anything to have some success as the president and chair, and formally as the member with Ed on the committee for SDGs, it's because of the people who stood before me. You know, an organization and its chair is only strong if you have a very strong board. It's only strong if you have a really outstanding, electric, energetic president. Now president, was the executive director, that's Paula. And also, in my case, to have 4 predecessor presidents who are active in the organization. So I win on all accounts. We have a wonderful board. We've had a wonderful executive committee of that board. We've had extraordinary staff leadership and staff members. And to be able to work with 4 people whom I highly revere and have known for quite some time, Ed Elmendorf, Eddie Dick, Karen Mulhauser, and Don Bliss. During the period I've been the board chair, they have continued to contribute enormously as they did during their periods of leadership as well. How can you stand up and feel confident when you're building on that kind of leadership that stood before me? So I've been a very fortunate fellow. Last, I just want to say that I've also been very fortunate to be the president or chair of the board, bookended by the Obama-Biden administration on one end in the first year of that, and now skipping over the Trump administration to be able to see the bookend of the new Biden-Harris administration. What an opportunity, knowing that you get that capacity at the beginning and eventually it will return, as it has for our country, and makes it possible to have seen our way through the Trump years. I'm not being a politician, I'm just talking facts of having practically undermined our relationship of all the key agencies like UNFPA during that period. Others have done that too, but we're coming back. We have an extraordinary blueprint to build on, which is the SDGs and also the peace building and peacekeeping plans. And now with the return to the Paris Accords and hopefully to the Iran nuclear defense as an example of what the world can do to diminish nuclear threat. We have a great deal to build upon going forward for the years ahead. I'm very pleased about the new board because it has strength of great diversity and interest and career backgrounds that will aid and abet this institution going forward. I'm especially pleased that you are taking the leadership, having been around the world working on these same issues that we've shared for many years on education and health and women and development strongly, especially including Africa, where so much of our careers, yours and mine, have focused. I'm just so pleased that the institution is going to be served by a person with your stature, your experience, your goodwill, your charm, and your energy. So I'm looking forward, while being a board member, not being the chair, but applauding your chairperson situation going forward and your leadership. We have a lot to still accomplish, but I think the challenges this institution faced over the last year particularly showed its mettle, showed its vigor, showed its ability to sustain itself and move forward. And I'm applauding all of you who are here tonight for the opportunity of having served with you over the last 4 years in the chair role. Thank you very much, Jill, for that presentation. And thank you all for the great honor that I've had to be working with you. It's the greatest honor in my life. I thought I'd retired 10 years ago, and you gave me the chance to get involved and be involved, deeply involved in a way that has nurtured and helped me to gain a great deal more knowledge and the privilege of working with all of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Thank you.
Your deep involvement has served us all very, very well in this small but mighty association. Members, board members, friends of the United Nations Association of the National Capital Area. As supporters of US engagement in the UN, it's been quite a year. As you've seen, there have been great initiatives by UNA-NCA that have nurtured and sustained our hope for the future, including the Coffee Chat series that drew folks from our region and beyond, UN officials, government officials, civil society organizations, all in support of the Sustainable Development Goals, the global and local contexts. Global classrooms and the initiative with the Model UN that included sponsorship from UN agencies, but also messages from the US Secretary of State and the UN Secretary General. Model UNers, middle school and high school students, absolutely inspire us. And the graduate fellows that we've heard a good bit about and have been appropriately honored tonight as far as the program, as they took on in-depth examination of the United Nations and its agencies and the viewpoints of UN officials, foreign service officers, and civil society advocates. Sharp-minded students learned and added critical insights towards progress. And so many different advancements of the association this past year. It's important to note the contributions that many of you have made, as well as in sponsoring organizations. We know that we must move towards a sustainable staffing structure in this competitive Washington, D.C. area. How we keep our staff, care for them, and ensure that they're doing their best, which includes interns and fellows. Our collective strength within UNA-NCA can only be stronger, and we can continue to be nimble and efficient by keeping our eyes on the equity factors that play out in our neighborhoods and around the globe. The wrath of COVID-19, the exacerbated inequities must be addressed if we're true to be building UNA-NCA stronger. I was so glad to hear that same message from Dr. Kenham. The slide of the Sustainable Development Goals, where we stand now, and even this week, the meager G7 attention to providing vaccines warrant our immediate attention. We see superb progress by the administration, re-engagement in the multilateral realm, and yet too, we must anticipate the shenanigans of opponents who seek to dismantle the United Nations. There's great potential in our UN conversations that start at the kitchen table, at the community center, in the boardroom, in our spiritual houses, and in the US Congress. As we embrace our diversity and reckon with our identity as an intergenerational, multiracial, gender-inclusive organization, we are stronger. Well, I look forward to serving as chair of the board of directors of this vital organization. You know, strategically, we can be even more powerful. Together, we can continue to build the UN Association of the National Capital Area. So thanks to Dr. Natalia Kenham and the Unfpa for tonight, our awardees for their energy and love that they've given to the association, our board members for the dynamic volunteer service and wisdom, staff and interns who continue to pour their best selves into making UNNCA thrive. And thank you, members and new members. As we close, we've got the piano arrangement from Karen Yang, participant in this year's Global Graduate Fellows Program, and obviously professional pianist from Korea. Go ahead, Karen.
That concludes our annual meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Paula, so much.
Thank you all. Goodbye.
Thank you, Karen.
Thanks, Paula. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks to all of you.
Thanks to everyone.
See you all soon.
Bye.